Hey, it's Dr. Gareth, and I've had a bunch of clients come in recently who are getting colds or flus. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about some concepts that have made a big difference for my health and well-being. And the first one is to ask yourself the question, do you define yourself as someone who is sick, or do you find yourself as someone who's being healthy when you catch a cold or a flu? The first time my very first chiropractor introduced me to this and told me that I was being healthy when I had a cold, I thought he was a little bit crazy, but it made a massive difference to my mindset around colds and flus. And the reason why I say that is because actually, firstly, most of the time you are catching those colds and flus and you don't even know about it. The first line of defense swats it away, beats it off, and you don't even know about it. If you do get the symptoms, you get the symptoms of the cold or the flu, well, it's obviously beaten your first line of defense, your immune system. And now your second and third lines of defense have kicked in, and it's obviously doing what it needs to do to kill off the invading bacteria or virus, which is a really healthy thing to do. So, how do you define yourself? Do you define yourself as someone who's being sick or someone who's being healthy? I'm not saying that it feels good. If I ever get a cold, which isn't very often anymore, I hate it. I do not enjoy it. But I do know that my body's being really healthy, and I'm very grateful for that. And it's a very important mindset shift when it comes to getting healthier and avoiding those colds and flus in the first place. So until the next video, just ask yourself that question. How do you define yourself? Are you someone who defines yourself as being sick or someone who's being healthy? So the next concept that I want to talk about in terms of catching colds and flus is the concept of you can't make me sick. So one of the beliefs that I used to have was that if I came into contact with someone that had a cold or a flu, was that I was probably going to catch it and I was probably going to get sick. And what I realized over the years is that that's not 100% accurate. You see, the thing is you're coming into contact with bacteria and viruses every day. And your immune system is actually destroying those pathogens before they have a chance to invade your body and make you sick. So it's really awesome to understand that, because then if you understand that, you just have to get that it's all about your immune system. So if you make your immune system strong enough to destroy those things, then no one can make you sick. So that's what I did. I used to get sick all the time. Every cold or flu that came around, I would catch it. But because I did the work that's required to get my immune system functioning properly, I hardly ever get sick anymore. And even if I do, it doesn't last very long. So I tell all my clients now, you're welcome to come in if you're unwell, because you can't make me sick. Hi, so if you are still following me at this point about catching colds and flus, the next thing that I think is really important is you actually understand how your immune system works. It is a part of you. You live inside your body 24 hours of the day, so I think it makes a difference to at least understand a little bit about how your immune system works. Now, I'm going to try and make this as relatable as possible, because I even had to write down some notes for myself so I didn't forget anything, and even some of the names are very sciencey. But I'm going to try and make it make sense as much as I can to you. So the first thing you want to understand about your immune system is that there's 3 lines of defense. So the first 2 are in a category called your innate immunity. Now, this refers to like a non-specific defense mechanism that comes into play immediately or within hours of an antigen's appearance in the body. Now, an antigen, you want to think of an antigen like the enemy. I mean, essentially, we're talking about like a bacterial virus or a foreign body, but it's like I think if I'm thinking of I've got my immune system, which is my fortress. This is the invading. The enemy, the invading force. So that's what an antigen is. Now, the first line of defense is your skin, and your mucous membranes. So obviously you've got your skin and your mucous membranes is like, so everything inside your nose, your mouth, all the way going down into your digestive system. And then your skin and your mucous membranes obviously produce different chemicals and secretions and enzymes and things like that to help fend off these bacteria and viruses and things like that. And that's what I mean when I say you're batting these things off all the time. You come into contact with loads of different bacteria and viruses and you don't even know about it. Now, the second line of defense, which is a part of this innate immunity, is it includes a couple of different things with some fancy names, and I'll break them down. So you've got your phagocytic leukocytes, you've got your antimicrobial proteins, and you've got your inflammatory response and fever. So phagocytic leukocytes, you want to think of these things as like, these are cells that ingest the bacteria. So they're like, I think of like the Pac-Man, the Pac-Man that eats the, I can't remember what they're called now, but you know what I mean. We think of it as like those like Pac-Man things from the game. Your antimicrobial proteins. So if we break that word down a little bit, a microbe is like a microorganism, especially like a bacterium that causes a disease or fermentation or something like that. So essentially these proteins discourage that microbial growth. The third thing is inside that is your inflammatory response. So this is where like a tissue gets injured by a bacteria or a toxin or heat or something like that. It's a little bit similar, like if you get hit by something, you get some swelling, that's inflammation. The same thing happens when you're fighting off a bacteria or a virus. That's why you get a sore throat, like your throat swells up, it's sore, it's red, that's inflammation. And then the last thing is fever. Now, many people think that fever is bad, but fever is actually really good because it raises the temperature of your body and it actually helps try and kill some of the bacteria and viruses that you may be fighting off. So that's the second line of defense. The third line of defense is under another category called your adaptive immunity. And this is the immunity that occurs after exposure to an antigen, again, that invading enemy. And basically, and again, it's kind of in the name, like it actually adapts to it. So it's actually quite specific. So inside that, you got your lymphocytes, which are a part of your immune defense, and they act to recognize those antigens and produce antibodies and destroy the cells that could cause damage. And so that's kind of there's a group, there's some other, they have some other names and there's some other branches, but all you need to know is you've got these things called lymphocytes. The second thing is your antibodies, also known as immunoglobulins. And these things, the way I think of them is they tag things. So you got to think of like, if you have your third line of defense, your little soldiers are running around and they got little paintball guns and they're shooting the antigen, the invading force, to mark them as that's the enemy. So that's kind of what they do. And then you got your memory cells. So that's the last thing inside this third line of defense is memory cells. And these things are produced to help your body remember that antigen. And I mean, that's how a vaccine works. So because you get a shot of a little bit of the disease so that your body then can recognize it, and so that your body can then destroy it when it comes along much quicker, because it's like, oh, I know what that is. So that's the third line of defense. Now, the last little thing that's really that I want to leave you with before we go is to realize that a lot of your immune system is related with your digestion. So if your digestive system isn't working as well as it could, then your immune system's probably not going to work as well as it could. And that's really important to understand, because that's going to make a difference with the next topic that I'm going to talk about, in terms of what I did to really turn around the problems I had with my immune system many, many, many years ago when I used to get sick frequently. So hopefully that was interesting and you remember some of that and it kind of made sense. Hi, so in this section, we're going to talk about what affects your immune system. This is the second take because I accidentally deleted the last one. I was going to talk about just the steps, but I think it's important, the steps of things that I did to improve my immune system, but I think it's important that you understand what actually is affecting your immune system. And the two things that we want to focus on, the first one is digestion, and the second one is your nervous system and stress. So if we just focus on digestion, you might wonder, how does digestion affect my immune system? But again, when I was talking before about what different cells and different things are, different kinds of proteins that are helping defend you, well, there's obviously the mucosal lines and different secretions, yeah? So if your digestion is not good, that's going to affect all that stuff, which is going to mean you're more vulnerable to the colds and the flus. The second thing is there's a lot of bacteria in your gut that is really good for you, and it's helping you fight off those colds and flus and helping your immune system be strong. And that's how antibiotics work. Usually if you get a cold, that's a bacterial overgrowth of a bacteria that's bad for you, and that's why you feel sick. And when you take the antibiotic, it kills everything, or a lot of things, and then you feel better. Now, unfortunately, antibiotics kind of kill indiscriminately, so it's not necessarily the best thing for you all the time, but I'll talk about that next time. But you just want to if you just get that concept, you want to get, okay, there's a lot of bacteria in my gut, and it's actually really healthy for me, then you want your digestive system to be working properly. The second thing then is about your nervous system and stress. So you want to understand how your nervous system works, firstly. So if I had a lion in front of me, then basically I don't want to die. So I need to fight him, or I need to run away. So my body's going to be doing everything it can and spending all of its energy on not dying. And that means that it's not going to spend any energy on healing, repairing, digesting, reproducing, and on fighting off colds and flus. Now, unfortunately, my brain can't tell the difference between a real lion and a work deadline, or running late for an appointment, or an argument that I have with my wife. And especially when you're getting many of these little stresses, or sometimes lots of these little stresses, that has a big impact on your immune system, because your immune system is going to get suppressed if you have that for a long time. So, some of the questions you want to ask yourself is, what's my digestion like? And what is my nervous system like? Now, just because you don't feel stressed, or you don't feel like your digestion is bad, doesn't mean that it is okay. Now, it might be, but there are some tests, and one of the tests they use is heart rate variability, because that is an objective test to tell me whether your nervous system is stressed out or not. But you can still ask yourself these questions and get interested in them, and potentially maybe even go and see a health professional if you're not sure. So in this last video on how to improve your immune system and catching colds and flus, I want to talk about how I actually improved my own immune system. So I may have already mentioned it, you may already know that when I was younger, when I was a child and when I was a teenager, I used to get sick a lot. If a cold or a flu came around, I would probably get it. And I get really frustrated. It used to suck. And as I was going through my chiropractic degree, I discovered there were many things that you could do to actually enhance this. And that's what we've been really building up to. So I'm going to go through what I actually did. Now, as an overarching concept, I want you to think of taking positive actions towards improving it, rather than trying to take things out. Now, we are going to talk about taking some things out, but I'm going to leave that towards the end. So there's going to be 4 things we're going to focus on in terms of positive steps forward. So the first one is, in the last video, I talked about how stress affects your immune system. Again, when you're in that fight or flight state, when your body is in danger, then immune function is not important. Yeah. So one of the things you can do is manage your stress levels. Now, there are many things that I did over that time, and that included getting personal coaching, seeing a counselor, meditation. Meditation is a fantastic thing that doesn't cost any money. There are lots of apps, some including Smiling Minds, Calm. I personally am using a lot of the Dr. Joe Dispenza meditations at the moment. They're fantastic for managing your stress. And then there's also personal development programs that you can do. One of the ones I did was, and did a lot of work with, was a company called Landmark. So there's a lot of different things, positive steps you can take in terms of managing your stress levels. Now, as part of that as well, if you have a very stressful environment, then getting yourself out of that stressful environment may also be something you want to do. But if you can take those positive steps forward first, then that's more constructive than just leaving a very stressful job or a very stressful relationship. So always focus on the positive things you can do first, and then consider taking yourself out of those stressful environments. Second thing is improving your eating. Now, without getting into like what foods you shouldn't eat, things like that, basically you want to focus on eating foods that your body, that are healthy for your body. Protein, fat, vegetables. These things are really healthy for you. And if you're not eating those things, then your body you're just not giving your body the fuel it needs to be healthy. And then if you're eating things that are not necessarily healthy for you, like sugar, which creates inflammation in your digestive system and messes with your gut. Remember, we talked about digestion in the last video about how if your digestion is not working well, the bacteria is not going to be in the right balance, and that's going to make you more susceptible to getting a cold or a flu. So eating the right foods and then avoiding the ones that will upset your system is a really healthy thing to do. And that's what I did. The third thing is exercising. So exercise is really good for your body in every way, your brain, your liver, like in so many ways. Now I do say exercise in moderation, because if you do lots of intense exercise, and I'm talking about someone who's training for an Ironman or something that's really intense, then that will actually suppress your immune system, because obviously you're stressing your body, which is another whole conversation. But exercise in moderation is actually really good for your immune system. And the fourth one is chiropractic. So I got chiropractic care throughout all of this. It's kind of how I stumbled across the fact that it could be, that my immune system could actually be better in the first place. It's really good for your brain and your body, and it helps take you out of that fight or flight state, which is obviously really beneficial in terms of building up your immune system. The last thing, and this is I say focus on this last, is essentially stop going for the quick fixes. So I stopped going for quick fixes, and that includes things like antibiotics. Now, I'm not saying antibiotics are bad or you should never take them. I have taken them, since I'd learned all this, I had taken them once, probably in the last 10 years, because I absolutely needed to. But what I did stop doing was I stopped going for them the minute I got sick. I stopped going because at the end of the day, while it is helpful and beneficial, it actually doesn't help you in the long term in terms of building up good gut function, which is really good for your immune system. Same thing with many medications. They can damage, like, again, if you absolutely need to take it, you should take it. But if you don't really need to, then why add another toxin into your system? Yeah, that's probably the simplest way I can put it, is stop going for the quick fixes. Now, it will suck sometimes. Like when you have a cold and you feel bad, it's going to suck. And it did suck. There was a period when I started like improving everything, where I would get sick and I'd have to just suck it up and let my body do what it was supposed to do, designed to do, to get me healthier. And over time, I got to the point where now, instead of getting sick multiple times a year, I maybe get a sniffle for a few days. And then it's all sorted. I haven't had a day of work in about 10 years, and I love it. And I also know that if I do get that sniffle, I do start getting sick, it's because I'm doing something like not getting enough sleep, or I'm working too much, or I'm stressed out, my diet's not going so well. So these are all really simple things you can do. I suggest you pick one. Look at getting a meditation app. Look at going and seeing your chiropractor. Pick something that's really simple. Some are going to be easier than others. So it's going to be easier if you go and see a chiropractor. It's going to cost you more money, but it's going to be easier because you basically just have to turn up, versus taking the time to do some meditation, which is going to require, it's much cheaper, but it is going to take you some, you're going to have to put the time in. So hopefully that's valuable to you. I hope you take at least one of these steps. If you know someone that would benefit from this, please share with them, because you are extraordinary and you're designed to be extraordinary. And until then, we'll talk next time.